Hi, Internet. It's Emily SW,
Sam,
and we're here with part 2 of The Man Who Laughs.
now that you've had the full scope of the full story, because this book was split into two parts, Volume 1 and Volume 2, last time we mostly just talked about things in Volume 1.
Yeah, and rambled,
As you do.
as you do.
Volume 2 is a little less rambly because a lot more happens plot-wise.
Okay, it is less rambly, but
I'm not saying it's not rambly at all, but I am saying that there was more plot. There was more actual action for the story.
oh yeah, absolutely. There was I would say that most of the plot is in this. I think we touched on that last time, where the first volume is like character and background history.
Yeah.
And then the meat and potatoes is volume 2. I will say though, nothing quite stood out to me as much as the hanged corpse on that gibbet.
At least for scenes.
Yes, I mean it was still a banger. I have so many little sticky notes. Even though I gave up on leaving them halfway through, I still have so many tabs.
I'm excited to hear what your notes are.
I mean, I just opened one randomly and it literally just says this warrants deeper thought / inspection. Guess that's what we're here to do.
Yeah. Okay. We talked a lot last time about Ursus and Homo.
Yeah, they were the
Urs-
stars. They were the stars of the first volume.
yeah. So you have Ursus, the man, who likens himself to a bear, and
And
Homo is a wolf.
who Ursus has likened to a man.
Correct. And it's very ironic, it's very topsy-turvy, but that's what this whole book is about.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And that comes up a lot in this, particularly with Ursus and him in contrast with whoever it is he's talking to.
Right.
Whether that's authority figures or Gwynplaine or whoever.
Gwynplaine, the man who laughs, his face is disfigured, and this was done to him surgically when he was a very young child. I mean, as far as we meet him as a child as well, I would have described him as idealistic, naive.
Yeah, he recovered from his extremely traumatic childhood fairly well, I would say.
But I think this comes into play. His background, having been raised up by, first of all, a band of criminals, and second of all, by Ursus, who is this traveling doctor, philosopher, showman, whatever he feels like at the moment.
He dabbles. He dabbles.
Yeah. When he's presented with the opportunity to either, I guess, kind of, this is going to be jumping ahead a bit, but he later on he's given the opportunity to basically yay or nay something, and he stands up for what he believes in, even though at that moment it's probably not really the best thing. He's not in the best position to do that.
I think that's the point of his character at the end of the day, I think, is that it's kind of comedic, almost like funny, quirky, haha, but he has beliefs, morals, ethics, and he sticks to them regardless of what's going on.
And then we also have Dia.
I don't know if
This
you know this, but she's pale.
she's very pale. She's very delicate, and she's got a weak heart. She's also blind, but she is the most innocent, virtuous, pure, loving, kind-hearted.
One might even say that love is blind, and that's where the metaphor came in.
I was, because I've been reading a lot of very modern books lately, and I was thinking about the difference between you reading a modern book and you have a very like one note character. Nowadays that's considered bad writing. But then you look at all these classic books where characters are either all good or all bad, and that's almost like the foundation of the story and the point of it. And it's just a really kind of interesting contrast you see.
Well, and I think too it has something to do with, when you're reading classics, older works, there's something to be said for the fact that they're the originals. So even if they are sort of one note or supposed to represent extreme good, extreme evil, whatever it is, when it's done the first time, it's not as played out, I guess. So like these are the sources of the cliches.
But I do want to say, if you are in fact trying to make a point about something, it has to be done in a clever way.
Yes, 100%. Because then it's like we talked about this with what was it, Twilight Eyes, where it felt like he was preaching to us and not, but it was like horrible and obnoxious and not in a good way.
Yeah, because the writing itself was very dry and boring.
Yeah, and none of it landed. I didn't feel any connection to any of that. Whereas in The Man Who Laughs, yes, the characters are kind of ridiculous, but and you used the perfect word, the irony, in terms of Ursus. Like this whole
Hmm.
thing, irony, satire, it's very clever, and it doesn't make me resent the fact that the author is trying to tell me something.
Ursus, Homo, Gwynplaine, and Dia, they are a found family together, and they're also their own kind of traveling show.
Very successful traveling show.
Oh yes, they were really gaining, I guess, fans.
Yeah, and that's a good chunk of the beginning of volume 2 is them
Hmm.
setting up shop. And now this is a big deal because it's not in like London proper, but it's adjacent to London.
Yeah, so at the very, very end of volume one, Ursus kind of starts to see pound signs, and he says, "Let's go to London, because that's where the big money is. That's where we can really, you know, strike it big."
And thus the beginning of the end.
Yeah, the I guess the pride goeth before the fall.
Yeah, so that was their first mistake is they went to this big city and what's in big cities? Politics. Politicians.
The aristocrats.
Capital M the man.
Except we meet the man, except in this case it's a woman.
Yeah, and oh boy, I talk about all good, all evil. This character is just existing to be one thing. And this capital W woman, rich, wealthy, powerful woman, she was a sex symbol.
Oh, absolutely. And it's really funny because when this book was published in 1869, and there was a lot of criticism of it because the aristocracy didn't like the way that the aristocracy was portrayed. But sometimes when you hold a mirror up to people's worst traits, they're not going to like it.
No, it definitely not when they're wealthy and powerful.
And this character, Josiana, I think represents like every reprehensible thing that he possibly could have thrown into this character.
Yeah, I also think because another sort of underlying theme, especially with Gwynplaine, and this goes along with him being so pure and innocent and virtuous, whatever. Boy, he's repressed. There are pages and pages, not back to back, but in different points of the volume 2. There are multiple rants.
Also, he spends a lot of time fantasizing about Josiana.
Yeah, and he also kind of fantasizes about Dia, and then he spends a lot of time feeling guilty about it.
Well, he and Dia were kind of a sure thing anyway. Let's go back. Let's talk about Josiana for a bit.
Oh yeah, sorry, I got
We first meet her. I think it was near the end of volume one, right?
yeah, we get the whole backstory about her and her what is it? Bark of Philadro?
Um, Josiana, she's what, like a half sister to Queen Anne,
Mhm.
but she's not a legitimate like heir to the throne or anything like that. She is engaged to this lord, but she's kind of putting off the marriage because she likes using him as an accessory.
Which I mean, no judgment here.
When we first meet her, she's at, I think it was a boxing match.
Oh yeah, weren't they were like disguised.
Yeah, but
Like
they're watching the point of this was they're watching a boxing match and it gets really brutal.
I mean, I can't help but think whenever encounter a scene like that, I just think about that the Sherlock Holmes movie with Robert Downey Jr.
Oh, yeah, where he has, like, the slow motion where he plans through his
Mhm.
whole plan of attack, and he uses the word discombobulate seriously, and it's very silly.
Yes. So that's kinda what I was picturing when they were there, I'll be honest.
But the way that this match goes, it gets to the point where, like, the 2 fighters are actually causing very serious injury to each other.
Yeah, and it becomes an issue because it is just not supposed to be that brutal.
But the thing is, Josiana enjoys this. She enjoys watching the brutality and seeing these men become very injured. And it suggested to her, well, if you want to see something really disgusting, you need to go see this show.
Yeah, and
And that's
audience,
how she gets put on the path of our heroes.
I mean, she had to be well, for Monsieur Hugo's purposes, she had to be a woman so he could explore how repressed Gwynplaine was and how pure and innocent and blah, 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 yada, yada, yada. I also think the fact that she is the representative of the aristocracy and the ruling class, I think the fact that she's a woman is interesting because that's a whole another level of demonization. The way that she's a sex symbol, and that
Mhm.
adds to her status as the villainess. Just from a feminist standpoint, it's interesting because that's clearly part of why you're supposed to think she's not good is her sexuality.
Yeah. Do you want to hear like exactly my notes about her? Because
Yes,
I think
please.
they're pretty good. Okay. So what I have about her is wealthy, wants for no material thing, yet is only satisfied by increasing violence as entertainment. Sexually shameless, whims of the wealthy, to whom the poor are mere playthings, and fetishizes misfortune.
Mm, that's a big one. Yeah. Yeah, it's
Uh,
like well, I have nothing to add. You put it perfectly, actually.
oh, okay. She does go to see the show, which we mentioned previously. It's called Chaos Vanquished, which was an Ursus original, as he fancied himself to be on the level of Shakespeare. And when she goes to see it, it's this really big deal because they know that someone very important is coming to see the show. And they had this whole like seat set up for her. And when she leaves, and she kind of leaves without really making a fuss about it, but she leaves a rather large sum of money in exchange for having seen this show.
Yes.
And that's when Gwynplaine is fantasizing about her for pages and pages and pages.
Yeah. Well, and I think too an interesting aspect of that scene is that she becomes the show almost. Like the audience, the common folk who are there to see Chaos Vanquished are now also observing her more so as much if not more so than the players they came to see.
Yeah, her presence itself is a spectacle.
So you've got the two opposite extremes. You've got this extremely wealthy, extremely beautiful, with big tracts of land lady. And then you've got the green, what do they call it? The green box? The our found family.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah, in their little traveling caravan house. Poverty, disfigurement, disability, powerless. So in that scene, in between these two extreme opposites of society, you've got the common folk in the middle observing both of them. And which I thought was very interesting because she is also putting on a show. And
Yeah.
I would say getting off on it. And if we take Josiana as also a metaphor for the entirety of the aristocracy,
And you had brought up before her kind of like assistant guy who had that really long name,
Barkafalajo.
Archifaladro. He thinks that he's kind of pulling the strings and manipulating everyone around him, even though his actual goal, aside from I guess attaining some kind of government position, I guess that's all he wants out of life, right? To feel
Yeah,
powerful.
he's just a miserable person who wants to make other people miserable and get something out of it.
I I feel like it set him up to be really important, but then he kind of fulfilled his role and then we didn't really hear about him anymore.
Yeah, he just kind of like he sets things in motion, but then that's it. Like he tips the dominoes, but then it's not even the outcomes necessarily that he wanted. Yeah, it is his character is a little strange. I will one of my notes here, um, but later on, when we get more of Barkifledro and his interactions with Gwynplaine and stuff like that,
Mhm.
one of his little, like, POV sections, he's thinking about how he wants a position in the church, and, like, that's his end goal is to get a position in the church, and I was just like, "Wow, tell me how you really feel." To Monsieur Hugo, the fact that this conniving, evil person who just wants to hurt people and cause harm is really vying for, like, a bishop's position.
You could sum up this entire book as, "Well, tell me what you really think,
Yeah,
Monsieur
that's
Hugo."
true. That's true. That's true. He I one of my very first sticky note, uh, says Victor Hugo hates the English, good god. And then,
You know what?
precisely 3 pages later, my second sticky note says, "I don't think he likes Christianity or religion either." And that kinda sums up like, he has very Christian morals, but he hates
Yes, the church.
the the church. Yeah.
The story takes place in the very early 1700s, so it also would have been the Church of England by this time.
Yes, they do touch on that in some of his history sections,
Mhm.
talking about popes and Catholics and Protestants and all that stuff.
France is a traditionally Catholic country. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm just gonna pull up a fact sheet about Victor Hugo, see if it has any particular commentary about his religion. Oh, there is in fact a section about his religious views. Let's see. According to Wikipedia, his religious views changed very radically over the course of his life. In his youth, he identified as Catholic. Later in life, he became a non practicing Catholic and increasingly expressed anti Catholic and anti clerical views.
You know what? This reflects that because this is one of his later works.
But then it says after 1872, so this is very not long after this book was written, he never lost his antipathy towards the Catholic Church. He felt the church was indifferent to the plight of the working class under the oppression of the monarchy.
I mean,
It also very specifically here on Wikipedia does mention the man who laughs because it says, yet he believed in life after death and prayed every single morning and night, convinced, as he wrote in The Man Who Laughs, that, quote, Thanksgiving has wings and flies to its right destination. Your prayer knows its way better than you do.
that definitely comes across in this book because there is a lot in here about, as we've discussed, virtue, good, evil, the concept of all that stuff. But he is just so highly critical of the church, and in particular, the way that the church and the government are enmeshed,
Yeah, so it sounds to me that he had spiritual beliefs, but didn't necessarily ascribe to organized religion.
which is extremely valid. I respect it.
Hmm. Yeah. Barkafledro ends up not a bishop, but he's put in charge of like kind of like the coastal watch, the coast guard,
Mm,
the people bringing stuff back from the sea.
yes, and that is actually how him and Gwynplaine cross paths.
That is his purpose in the plot is to kind of bridge our two worlds together even more so than Josiana going to see the show did. Because remember, if you remember from volume 1, when the child traffickers left Gwynplaine on the shore and then sailed off into a storm and the ship sank. But before it sank, they all signed a note and put it in a bottle and cast it out to the sea.
A confession of sorts.
Yes, and I remember when I said, I bet this will be important later,
Yeah,
because
and that continue.
this bottle ends up in the hands of our conniving, treacherous Barkafledro.
And it's really funny to me too that it's the whole, like, message in a bottle trope, but instead of being a treasure map or something, it's just a list of crimes and the people who committed them.
Yeah. But among those crimes
Is
is
child trafficking.
yes, but very specifically
The commissioned, uh, mutilation and selling of
of
Gwynplaine, who,
yes,
before he was Gwynplaine, he had some long lordly title that I can't remember off.
Lord
Uh,
Fermain Clancharlie.
there it is.
So he was born the son of a lord, but his father was exiled. But nonetheless, they still retains claim to his father's lands and place among the lords. And they don't know this until this bottle is found that explains that they had Lord Clancharlie's only son and heir.
It's funny because, well, this is a comedic tragedy, I would say. But it's funny because that bottle that lists all these things that were done to Gwynplaine, and it's like, hey, Gwynplaine, we did this to him. We cut his face open. This is what he looks like, basically. He's actually this lord. Our bad. And so that elevates Gwynplaine from lowborn, not lowborn, but low,
Basically,
the lowest of the low in the social rung, the
yeah, the
social
actor.
ladder, the Mont Blanc, and
Um,
elevates him to the lordship, but it is actually his downfall.
yes, and also before he finds out about all this, we get all of Monsieur Hugo's commentary about the judicial system.
Oh my god, I have so many sticky notes. I think the majority of my sticky notes were in that section. It was like every other page. I was just like this one just says "Pop off, King."
Because while they're in London, Ursus kind of warns Gwynplaine about, and you might have to look up the word because I don't remember it. The man who was walking around with the staff, and if he
Oh
touched you with the staff, you were supposed to follow him, and usually those people were never seen again.
yes, yes. Hold on, I have.
I was in one of I would say Ursus has a lot of like ramblings and his kind of philosophic musings. That's like the only one where he's kind of serious and not saying the opposite of what
Yeah,
you would expect.
Wapentake. That is the name. The Wapentake. Sorry, I've continue.
Oh no, that was it.
Okay.
Ursus was actually serious for once, warning Gwynplaine about them.
Yeah, I had a lot of thoughts about that. In particular, when Gwynplaine gets taken before the court. This was not I marked this quote purely because I thought it was funny. He's just speaking nonsense, and then one of these judges says, or Ursus thinks, I don't know what I'm saying. But all the judges are like, oh yeah, you're right. That is so smart. Yeah, and it's this whole thing where it's religion versus history versus medicine are the judges. There's literally one's a religious guy, one's a doctor of history, and one's a doctor of medicine. They also try to get him on speaking out against the crown, but they just can't because he is. Oh, here's another
I,
banger line. As a Montblanc, you may speak. As a philosopher, you must keep silent.
he basically confuses them to the point where they can't do anything.
Yeah, and he also, I think the thing that stood out to me, or I guess the thing that I noted, was that they really are just trying to twist and turn every little thing and attack him and make him defensive, make him slip up essentially. But he comes at things from a very sort of common sense, logical, thoughtful perspective as much as Ursus is, because he is sort of an ironic figure. Oh, here's one of my other notes about that. The judges, the judicial system here has a desired outcome, a desired crime. Essentially, they want to commit this person or they want to convict this person of. So
Mhm.
they find evidence to support that versus what you're supposed to do in a just system, which is the evidence dictates the crime or whether a crime was committed.
Yeah, so tell us what you really think.
Yeah.
He's saying the system is guilty until proven innocent.
Yep. they're just trying to maintain the existing power structures, the imposed order, which is the law, and
Mm-hmm.
the capital L law put in place by the capital M man is at odds with truth, morality, and justice to the common people.
Yes. And this is also kind of driven home through a couple. These aren't in the same scene, but Gwynplaine is taken away by the Wapentake, and he's
Mhm.
taken down into a prison, and he's basically presented with a man who's been starved. He's being pressed. For
Very
all
horrific.
for all intents and purposes, he's being tortured, right?
Mhm.
But the lords later on maintained that we don't do torture anymore here in England because they basically use judicial phrasing to say it's not torture, it's the process, it's the peine et douleur, as they call it, the
Yeah.
pain and hardship that will force a confession. But it is torture.
I'm trying to find my note, but it's basically they find precedents, ergo, because there's precedents, that makes it correct, just. And that is really not what real morality and ethics look like.
The whole point of doing this is that that man was the surgeon who disfigured Gwynplaine's face, and he's able to confirm that yes, this person here is the result of my extremely experimental surgeries.
Yeah, and
So
then
that's how they prove his identity.
that's how they prove his identity. And the whole thing is also, I think, supposed to be a circus. Because in this torture chamber, you've got these figures, these authority figures that are all dressed up in their robes and their powdered wigs and all this stuff. And fulfilling, they're following a script of, okay, read this thing. Here's the law. I'm going to ask you this question. And then this other guy reads this thing, explains this thing, asks the question again, put more stones on there, lift his head up, do this, that, and the other thing. Oh, he's not answering. Get the doctor here. Make sure he's still alive. Like, it's
Surprise,
pomp,
he wasn't.
it's pomp and circumstance for nobody. The only
Yeah.
people in that room are the authority figures, the tortured man, and then later Gwynplaine.
Who is confused as all hell.
And terrified,
Yeah.
which I don't
So
blame
he
him.
thinks that he thinks he's about to be imprisoned.
Yeah. Yeah, because Ursus was like, hey, you see that whip and take guy? Stay away from him. Yeah, and then he finds out he's a lord, and then he swoons. Monsieur Hugo goes on and on and on about how it was okay for him to swoon. It was perfectly manly. It was fine in this
Yeah.
situation.
You know what? In that situation, can you imagine though? Like, you've been arrested. You're taken to this extremely high security prison and you're taken down to a torture chamber. And
Literally down into the depths of the earth, twisting tunnels, deep staircases, dank, cave like pits of hell.
so you're scared out of your mind, and then you're presented with a man basically on the brink of death who says, "Oh, yeah, I'm the one who did that to your face." And then he dies. And then the police are basically like, "Oh, yeah, by the way, you're a lord, so now you can go home to your lordly estate."
Yeah, basically it's like, oh yeah, all of a sudden it's like, yeah, that name you think you have, that ain't your name. Here's your real name, your correct name. You have a bunch of land and power and titles, and you have a right to go to the House of Lords and this, that, and the other thing.
So I think that would be quite the shock.
Yeah, listen, I'm not criticizing him for swooning. It stood out to me that Monsieur Hugo had to justify it. But
That was
it
quite the
is,
roller coaster of emotions.
oh my gosh. It really was. And that was pretty metal. It was a pretty metal description. Still not as metal as the corpse. But honestly, like despite the fact that a man was being tortured, which is nothing to laugh at, it was comical. Just the way that officials were going about things and how the main guy would speak his piece, and then his lackey would speak up and clarify the Latin or further explain whatever he was saying. And I was thinking about clowns a lot while reading this, and how everyone in this book was a clown. They were all players. They were all a contradiction of themselves at one point or another.
Oh, well, now you have the subversion of Gwynplaine being horrifying looking figure who was made famous by being an actor in a traveling show. And now he's on his way to the House of Lords.
Yes. Which, that's shady on Hugo's part.
We haven't even gotten into what he really thought of the House of Lords.
No. About Gwynplaine rising to the House of Lords and getting all this land and stuff. The thing that really stood out to me is that happened because of all these laws in place to protect the aristocracy from the monarchy, essentially. All these things existed to protect people that weren't the king and queen. They wanted to protect their lands and their titles and their power against the monarchy.
I thought it was kind of interesting. He had a page in there talking about how to limit the power of the monarchy, and kind of by proxy, then the common person would benefit from that.
Yeah.
But then he made a point, he said, but it is time to bury that and let it go.
Yeah, because it was purely self-serving.
Yes.
Yeah.
One thing I want to say too, I guess before we get too far ahead of ourselves, is that after Josiana had seen Gwynplaine in the show, and she sends like a little note telling him to go meet her. He doesn't do it. Yeah, but she comes back.
She does.
He goes to his shiny new lordly manor, and she's there. She's just there.
Yeah, surprise! That's supposed to be your wife or fiance,
they don't
whatever.
know that yet, but he sees her in the room, and she's wearing this really like sheer robe. So
that was
Monsieur Hugo makes a point of telling us how very naked she is.
Oh my god. Oh my god.
In case you had missed that she was a sex symbol.
Yeah, and in case you had missed that she is supposed to be confusing poor virtuous virgin Gwynplaine.
And also, if you had missed the part about her finding entertainment in misfortune, because when she kind of wakes up and sees him standing there, and she's like, oh, well, you're answering my note. You're here just to be my lover, and it's going to be great because you're so horrible. And it's kind of like this novelty thing to her.
Yep.
But then as soon as she finds out he is actually the proper lord heir to that estate, she's like, nah, I don't want this anymore.
Yeah, which really...
So I was just sitting there thinking, which fetish is this?
Well, and the other thing about that is she's literally I also think part of the reason she's such a sex symbol is that she's literally seducing him. Like, it's the power and the money of the position seducing Gwynplaine from his virtuous poverty, essentially. Which, obviously, the idea of poverty being inherently virtuous is a thing on its own. But the fact that she's seducing him, and then as soon as she perceives that he doesn't need to be seduced, aka he's got the money, he's got the lands, he's not just a nobody actor, and she's like, actually, I don't want you anymore.
Yeah, well, it's also a very big power thing in there too, because in the situation where he's just the actor and she is the lady with the money, she has power over him, which is the same reason that she won't actually marry Lord David. Because as long as they remain engaged but not married, she retains a place of power in that relationship.
That's a very good point as well.
So she's really only interested in him when he's beneath her.
Yeah, and when she can use her position in society to both protect herself and also potentially harm him should it come to that. But before we get away from Josiana, from that scene we were just talking about where Gwynplaine sees her,
Mhm.
there's a line here, "A woman naked is a woman armed."
Wow.
Just banger after banger. Another line from before, this just kind of punctuates what we were talking about with her her fetishizing. "Ugliness is mean, deformity is grand. Ugliness is the devil's grin behind beauty. Deformity is the reverse of sublimity. It is the back view." Really just it's just a disgusting way to look at somebody, honestly. Oh, another
Alright.
banger line. Sorry,
Okay.
one more. "Caresses can roar." I like that line because it first of all, I was like, "Oh, wow. What a banger." And then my second thought was, that could be in a fanfic. Anyways,
Should we talk about the House of Lords? Tell me what you really think.
this whole scene was like, I don't know, talk about circuses and actors and fulfilling parts. It really oh, here's another line here's a line about the House of Lords. "Aristocracy is proud of what women consider a reproach, age, yet both cherish the same illusion that they do not change." Yeah, so there's a lot of pomp and circumstance. They have to tell Gwynplaine what to do.
Oh, yeah,
Like,
because the amount of ceremony involved.
they have this actor, this Mont Blanc, coming in to a new role in the House of Lords, being directed as he was by Ursus before. There were a lot of just going on and on about names and titles and stuff in this, and it
Uh, I was like, this isn't gonna be on the test later, so I don't really care.
yeah, and this is more of his rambling about the history of England and the peerage and
So on the subject of the peerage, though, and this was another important point he made about the aristocracy, they actually, the House of Lords, in their eyes, consider themselves equal to the monarch.
that's true. That's one of the reasons was it Anne? Anne's the queen, right?
Yeah, Queen Anne.
That she is so, "Yeah, sure, make this deformed actor guy a lord again," is because she's like, "That'll make the peerage happy because we're restoring one of their own." But in actuality, it is supposed to be a system of checks and balances, but at the end of the day, the queen is still the one calling the shots and letting them think they are equal to her in power.
Yeah, here was another thought that I had about taking basically someone off the street and throwing him into the House of Lords. Someone who was actually raised in that position, besides the fact that they would know like the ceremony and the proper procedure and I guess the etiquette and this kind of stuff.
And the education.
And that was my next point. They would be
Okay.
educated on the issues.
Yeah.
It would have been an extremely biased education, but they still would have had it.
Yeah, they would be familiar, at least to some degree, with the laws and the history and all that stuff.
Yes.
Whereas
Which is Gwynplaine just says what he wants to say with no, I don't want to say even with no regard for the consequences, because he doesn't even understand what the consequences are.
yeah, there is that is definitely where I mean, he's a young man. He's not a child, but he is a young adult, but also that's where his sort of naivety and
Hmm.
his innocence come into play, where the way that he was taught his education by Ursus, I mean, yeah, Ursus had that thing on his wall about the lords and all that rambling nonsense from the first book. But what Ursus actually taught and talked about was, I would argue, more sort of common sense, just live your life, be a good person kind of philosophy. So that doesn't mesh well with these really entrenched systems of power.
Yes, and we also have another extremely ironic scene because, in short, the lords are all voting on whether to Queen Anne's husband, the king, a raise, an extra allowance.
Yeah, that
And it was not an insignificant one either.
no. That really hit a little close to home in the year of our
And
Lord 2025 in America, in the United States of America.
of course, all the lords are voting yay, 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 because like, what do they care, right? For them,
Yeah,
it's
they're
all
not
a
paying for it.
system. But of course, Gwynplaine was not raised this way, so he votes nay, to the shock of all the old men in there. And then he stands up and he gives his very impassioned speech about how the money could be better spent on the impoverished of England. And
Big rookie mistake.
here, especially on your first day,
Yeah.
like they don't even know who you are, and you're here trying to upset their whole world. But now here's what happens: is that the man who laughs, who has gone through this whole story, kind of, I guess, being laughed at through all these performances, but he's now subject of laughter in a setting where the consequences are much more serious. And there's nothing he can do to remove the smile from his own face. Like he can't even properly express his emotions like through facial expression because of the way that his face has been permanently done up in this laughing expression.
Not only can he not express emotions, what he's feeling, he also can't sort of cater to what the situation needs. Like he can't be contrite or be whatever.
Even his appearance is a joke.
Yeah, and I think what Monsieur Hugo was really getting at is that the House of Lords is a joke. The aristocracy is a joke. Let us be kind, and what is it? Let us be kind and bury it or whatever.
Let's bury it and let it go.
Yeah.
So this is, I guess, kind of the beginning of the end.
Yeah, Gwynplaine gets a taste of what his life would have been, I suppose.
An extremely brief one.
Yeah, and it is not all sunshine and fairy tales.
No, I guess the lesson here is that money and property do not equate happiness.
No, and that also money and property are no substitute for virtue.
Or friendship, family, love, companionship.
That's a good point.
Everyone in the aristocracy, it's basically showed us that all of their relationships are transactional. They're not genuine. No one has genuine affection for each other, at least as far as the characters we've met through the story in positions of power.
No, and traditionally aristocracy is very blood conscious in terms of relations. Blood relations trump everything. But Gwynplaine, Ursus, Homo, and Dia, none of them are related by blood.
Yeah.
And yet their bond is better, stronger, happier than any of the other ones that we see.
That kind of wraps up the themes, I think the important themes, and the main, it's not even the main message because it was the main 10 different messages all at once about a whole slew of different topics.
Yeah. Yeah. Mr. Hugo is just like, I hate, and then started writing and never stopped.
You know what? He's probably still going from the great beyond.
That's true. He is hosting a podcast in the afterlife.
We joked about having like the author's guest on the podcast. We should find a way to, I guess, tune into the Hugo from the Beyond pod.
That would be pretty. That would be cool. Dream guest on my podcast.
Victor Hugo. If you know anything about this story, it's a tragedy.
Yep, it's very Romeo and Juliet-esque.
I have a lot of thoughts about it, mostly that I don't actually think it needed to be a tragic ending, because, and here's my reasoning, by that point in the story, we had already learned the lesson. I don't think that the tragic ending added anything to reinforce the lesson.
No, I agree with you. I think it would have almost been more impactful if instead of the tragic ending, we go back to kind of the hero's journey where you go back to your roots, you go back to the start, but everything's changed. I forget what that story beat's called, but it's like the hero the return, that's what it is. The hero returns but things have changed for the better.
Yeah.
We've learned, we've grown. Did you really make a point if everyone lives?
I think he could have in this case.
Yeah, I agree.
You can literally read everything up to the penultimate chapter, and that will be the whole story, but with a nice ending.
That's a good point.
If you want tragedy, then you can read the last chapter. I don't think you needed the last chapter because we learned the lesson. We had like the lowest point. I don't think it was necessary, but it's not my story, so.
No, I will say though, in terms of unnecessary final scenes, I still prefer that over the Harry Potter flash forward. At least it ends on a really gothic, haunting image of Homo baying into the abyss. I was trying to figure out, like, I was really scratching my poetry metaphor English major brain. It's like, what is this exact symbolism? And I'm tired. It was a good book. It was enjoyable, but boy, did it exhaust me.
It's a lot.
I would want to stop and like absorb it. So yeah, if you're gonna read this book, definitely take your time with it. Have a
And
dictionary handy.
properly reflect upon what you just read. Like your
Uh,
note that said to think more deeply about it later.
yeah, this warrants deeper thought. But yeah, so that was The Man Who Laughs. He did not really do much laughing in this book.
There
Of
was a lot of laughing,
Not on Gwynplaine's part.
usually at someone's expense.
But yeah, so the next podcast episode will not be a two-parter. It'll be a one and done episode. Be sure to like the video, leave us a comment, let us know what you thought either about our thoughts or if you read the book. Let us know what you thought about the book. Follow us on Instagram, subscribe to the YouTube channel. One of these days I will write that script and I will read it at the beginning. We'll get it right eventually. All right, well, in the meantime, good night.